Hello, Mr. Berkowitz. Thank you for coming in today to get interviewed. How are you doing today? Okay, first question. Why do they call you Son of Sam? Can you explain in full detail why you are called that name? Okay, so it says here you were possessed by demons and a dog was telling you to kill and murder people. What kind of dog are we talking about here? Are we talking about a pit bull? Are we talking about a golden retriever? Are we talking about a chow or something? Right. Hit it! What's going on, friends? Logan Myerz back here for Cinephellas.com. Really excited to talk about the show that was just released on Netflix, the second season of David Fincher's Mindhunter. So the first season of Mindhunter came out almost 2 years ago, 22 months ago, almost 2 years, setting up the characters Holden, Ford, and Bill Tench. Work for the FBI, the profilers. They're setting up this unit, the BSU, the Behavioral Science Unit, essentially interviewing serial killers, building these profiles, building this database and things like that. You know, nature versus nurture. Does it stem from like their childhood, abusive experiences with their family or family members? Trying to, really dive into figuring out why these people do the cruel and awful and horrible things that they do, killing innocent people. So the first season we had Stephen Groff playing Holden Ford, and really fantastic actors. The first season had to do with the co-ed killer Ed Kemper. We see what happens to Holden Ford at the very end of the season, having to do with Ed Kemper. He kind of like freaks out, and it sets up the second season. We see where Ford is at, suffering from panic attacks. He was hospitalized. His mental state is not the greatest after dealing with Kemper in the first season. And he's trying to recuperate. So a lot of things fall on Bill Tench, and he kind of takes more of the lead role in this season, which I really appreciated because I love Holt McKillany. I think he's a really fantastic actor. He's been doing it a long time, but I think he kind of found his perfect role, and I thought he really sunk his teeth into this role and really did an excellent job throughout the entire season. And season 2 of Mindhunter is only 9 episodes. Last season was 10, so there was one less episode, and at the end of this one, you really want more. But early on in the second season, we catch a glimpse of the BTK killer. We saw a glimpse of him in the first season. Really see a lot of weird shit having to do with like him wearing a mask and like wearing a bra and strangling himself and beating off, and it's just really creepy, and it's a really eerie setup of the season. They go more psychological in this season, and they go to some really, really dark places, interviewing a lot of famous serial killers, and then eventually trying to figure out this other case, this huge case that happened back in the day down in Atlanta. Like I was saying, Bill Tench is more of the focal point of the season, a lot of it having to do with his family and his young son. He's living in Virginia, he has a wife and a son they adopt, and something really tragic happens in Virginia where they live, and having to do with their young son, and he's like super quiet and not talking about it. That whole arc throughout this season with Bill's son and family and what he's dealing with, and then having to go down to Atlanta, dealing with this major Atlanta child murders case that took place back in the 70s. But what I really enjoyed about season 2 of Mindhunter is them interviewing the famous serial killers from back in the day, Charles Manson and David Berkowitz, otherwise known as the Son of Sam. The Son of Sam interview is probably my favorite of this season because the actor that plays David Berkowitz is the resemblance is uncanny. It's just like ridiculous how good they did with the prosthetics to make him look like David Berkowitz, and the voice and everything, like the thick, East Coast accent. He did a really great job. Great seeing Holden and Bill Tench, interviewing him, trying to understand why he did the things he did, and then questioning him about, how there's a dog talking to him, telling him to kill people, and them figuring out it was all bullshit and just to make a name for himself in the media, being the serial killer and making people afraid of him. It was which a lot of serial killers do. They like that control, and they kind of dive into that element throughout the season. Is these serial killers are always looking for that control, the way they can control the media. And Anna Torv's back again this season, playing Dr. Wendy Carr. She's like the third wheel. She's part of the gang, the BSU. working with Tenshi and Holden, and she's really fantastic this season, being this doctor and working with them and interviewing serial killers. But she has like a side story. She has this relationship. She's a lesbian, meets a girl at a bar, and she's a bartender, and they start this relationship, and it kind of fell flat for me towards the end of the season. Like, it started out pretty interesting, showing that, she's human too. She's not just, all work and FBI. She does have a lighter side to her and a relationship with this girl, but things don't turn out the greatest. I really liked how they started the story with her, but the way it ended was kind of lackluster for me. The first 3 or 4 episodes of the season are definitely them interviewing a lot of different serial killers, building these profiles. And you see the BSU really starting to get recognized by the media and the FBI, so they bring in this character, Assistant Director Gunn, which is really fantastic in this season. He kind of is the boss of the BSU, overseeing Tenshi and Holden, and trying to bring in more employees so they can continue doing what they're really good at, is interviewing serial killers and getting in the minds of them. There's one scene where he's talking to Holden, like the first time they meet. He's like, "What do you want?" And Holden's like, "Charles Manson." He's like, "Done. I'll get you Charles Manson." And he did a really awesome job, setting up these interviews with Berkowitz, Charles Manson, and a bunch of others. And he was a really pivotal part of this season, and really pushing this department for them to get recognized and showing that they can do good work and really be helpful, when solving crimes and murders and things like that. So he was a really great part of this season. The second half of the season takes place down in Atlanta, Georgia. The Atlanta child murders, with Holden and Tenshi going down there, trying to figure out what exactly is happening. A lot of these kids, African-American kids, have been missing, eventually end up finding their bodies weeks later. The mothers of these children are pissed off at this point because the cops and media aren't doing anything about it. The show sets a really great element of Holden and Tenshi trying to figure out what exactly is happening down in Atlanta, why these kids are missing, and what is happening to them exactly, who's behind all this. And really fantastic ending to this season as well, coming down to this one guy. I'm not going to really say who, but he's kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because the FBI at this point is, running out of ideas. But what's really compelling about this season, David Fincher being behind this. There's a few other directors that directed episodes throughout the 9 episodes. Just the pacing, the storytelling. This is not a fast-paced show. The atmosphere that they build. David Fincher always has this gloomy, ominous, atmosphere that he has in his movies and TV shows. And this is definitely another case of that. It feels very eerie. Something is off in the air while watching this, and you don't know what's going to happen to Holden and Tenshi, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it never lets you go in the 9 episodes. This is something I was so committed to from the first episode all the way until the last few minutes of episode 9. It just really kept me involved. A few of my favorite scenes from this season, one being Holden. There's a scene where he's running with a cross, having to do with this Atlanta march kind of thing, and just the music that's playing, and it's the way it's cut, and just had this a very old school vibe to it from an old school 1970s film. Just the way it was shot, just cinematography wise, it was really beautiful. A lot of the cinematography in this season was top notch, like always with David Fincher. A lot of great music. I love seeing Bill Tenshi taking the lead role in this season, him kind of going back and forth from Virginia with his family stuff going on down to Georgia, trying to figure out this case. And Holden really kind of overcoming a lot of health issues he had with his panic attacks and trying to get back into the swing of things, interviewing serial killers, and you kind of see him struggle throughout as well. And Anna Torv, again, was really great this season. She's a really great aspect and piece to their unit and their group dynamic. And I thought she was really great this season, as well as Dr. Wendy Carr. And there's a lot of supporting casts that are introduced this season, and a lot of great serial killers that they really bring to life in this TV show. I love David Berkowitz, son of Sam, and then Charles Manson, played by the same actor that portrayed him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He actually had a lot more to do in Mindhunter. He had a really great conversation with these 2 FBI agents, and you could tell that he was really crazy, and he went to a dark place. And a lot of the prosthetics and makeup they used on Charles Manson was really believable. It looked exactly like him, so I really appreciated that. And I love the way they ended the season as well. I thought the overall tone, atmosphere, music, cinematography, and just story was really well done. And it's definitely not a happy ending, and they're going to set it up for more seasons. I think Fincher wanted to do 5 seasons of Mindhunter. So I guess we'll have to wait another year or two to see what happens. So overall, I had a really great time with the second season of Mindhunter on Netflix. I was really excited for this. I've been waiting almost 2 years to see what Tenshi and Holden are up to and what they come across. And they did not disappoint. Really great performances. A lot of great introductions to serial killers that some people may not be familiar with. I love true crime. I love reading up on this stuff, listening to podcasts about, serial killers back in the day, because it's just really interesting and why they do the things they do. So they really depicted that perfectly in this season. So overall, I'm going to give the second season of Mindhunter on Netflix a 4.5 out of 5 Son of Sam hair pieces. What did you guys think of the new season of Mindhunter? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What did you think of the portrayals of David Berkowitz and Charles Manson? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe. This is Logan Myerz signing out, my good mates up here, Holden and Tenshi. Until the next video review. Cheers!